Welcome back to Almost a True Crime Podcast, a product of Bitch Pack Media. We are your hosts, Taryn and Madison. Listener discretion is advised due to the mature content and the amount of cuss words we say. You've been warned.
Hey guys,
Welcome back.
We are
listeners.
Back in action.
For once, maybe back and better than ever.
You know,
For once
I
in our
actually
lives.
might argue the same.
If you don't know what we're talking about, I'm sure you do.
You probably do. I quit drinking.
Yeah.
I'm a sober girly.
Sober girlies.
California sober.
I hate that.
It's true.
It is true. I got a cat yesterday, so
The
A very-
tiniest little angel baby.
tiny baby.
We are going to have no teeth left in our mouth because
I'm going to grind them down to nubs because she's
Yeah.
so cute.
so cute. So
She's
tiny.
so
The tiniest head.
small.
I want to put her whole head in my mouth.
She's so small.
Like, do you also have that urge?
Yeah.
Okay, I said it out loud, and Caitlin was like, I thought I was the only one who, like, thought things like that. I'm like, no, I want,
Like a little tiny soft cat head.
because it would fit.
It would fit because she's...
I could put her
small.
whole mouth in my head. Should I try? Maybe she'll like it.
Maybe. You don't know. We never know.
We'll see. We got to teach her to have very few boundaries.
Exactly right.
We got to break her will.
Yeah, I want her to be up in our beeswax, and I want to be
At
allowed
all
to be up in
times.
her beeswax.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to force her and Lola to be best friends.
Yeah, we're not making the same mistakes.
No.
We really let Gato run our lives.
Absolutely. It took 7 years for Gato to let me touch her. And even that was a few pats on the head, and that was it.
That was it. That's all you could get.
Yeah, but it was wonderful.
Oh my God.
Gato's
So,
so
yeah.
pissed up in cat heaven.
100%. This cat's touching all her shit.
And literally just up in her cat tree. Her cat tree still has her hair in it.
All of her little hairs.
She's like, what the fuck is this? That is my window.
I know. I miss her.
Oh, me too.
She would hate this cat, though. This would not be happening.
Fuck no. This cat would be dead
I
by
would
now.
say that cat, she would no longer be with us. Anyway, her name is Harvey, and she's adorable. She's half black and half orange, like literally cut in half in a
She
straight
has
line.
some little white spots on her paws,
I know.
which is so, I can't wait to see what she looks like.
I know.
Oh, I want a kitty.
You do need to get
I'm
one.
going to get a kitten.
Yeah. It's time. It's time to grow up and get a cat.
It is. I deserve that.
You really do. And
I
now's
know.
the time.
Absolutely. I can get anything I want right now. I'm really pushing the new car thing, though.
You kind of need one, though.
I know. I'm thinking next few months for sure.
That's not a ridiculous ask, I don't feel like.
Fuck no. We got to trade mine in before it gets too up in them miles.
Yeah.
Or it ain't going to be worth shit.
You're not going to get no money out of it. Okay. Anyway, so we're back now. Summer's over.
Summer
We're
is
reformed.
over. I've actually never been so happy for summer to be over.
Me either.
Like, I am such a summer girly.
You are a summer girly. I never have been.
But I am
Never will
excited
be.
for fall. I'm
Yes.
excited to cook and bake
Yes.
and just enjoy sober life. How gay.
That is pretty fucking gay.
So yeah, if you guys don't know all the tea, you should go listen to Lady and the Countess,
Yes.
because
Last week's episode.
if you want to hear about the demise of my mental health that led to
It's quite a story,
the
honestly.
revelation that I, in fact, have a drinking problem.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
TBH.
Very enlightening.
It's like a half hour long, that part is. If you just want to listen to that part, go ahead.
And
You
if you
should do
don't, don't.
Yeah. Who are we really to tell you?
Yeah.
Who the hell are we? All right, so we're coming back and we're hitting the ground running with a 3-parter
Woo, woo, woo.
that I've been working so
excited.
fucking hard on.
I'm excited to. Is this going to be something I've heard about?
I was wondering, and I'm not sure.
Oh, all brand new. I mean, I
Maybe.
didn't know about fucking. I didn't know nothing about
Waco?
Fucking Waco. Yeah, that was my favorite. That might have been one of my favorites so far.
That one was a good one. Are you familiar with the West Memphis 3?
I've heard of, but I don't think I know anything.
Well, you're about to know
Every
everything.
single beat.
Like, the articles were all so short, but I know there's a lot to this. So
there are documentaries about it on or Hulu, I think. I've almost watched.
There's a ton, I think. So I started, like, supplementing with the book, and then I just read the entire book and did it.
Ant, come back here, you little fucker. We've abolished you in here.
Yeah, we're done with ants in here. I cleaned really good. So
we can't have anything in here anymore.
No, we can't. We're grounded. All right, so I am doing the case of the West Memphis 3. If you have not heard of this, it is true insanity. And it's going to be 3 parts. It's probably going to be close to what Waco was, 2 longer ones, and then the last one is sort of like a short wrap-up one. But now that I'm scrolling, it actually might. I can't promise anything, actually.
We never actually know what any of it's going to be.
I don't know. So let's just get started. So on May 5th, 1993, the West Memphis Police Department received 3 different phone calls reporting 3 different children missing. This is also in Arkansas, not Tennessee. West Memphis, Arkansas, in case anyone's confused. John Byers called around 8 p.m. to say he last saw his son, 8-year-old Christopher Byers, doing yard work at around 5:30 p.m. and doesn't know where he went. At 9:24, they received another call from the house directly across the street from the Byers home. Dana Moore reported that her 8-year-old son, Michael Moore, and his friends Christopher Byers and Stevie Branch were riding bikes when she lost sight of them and sent her daughter to find them, but she couldn't find them either. And that was over 3.5 hours ago by the time she called police that she couldn't find them. Mm-hmm. Shortly after that, Pamela Hobbs reported her 8-year-old son, Stevie Edward Branch, missing. It was never noted who was supposed to be watching Stevie, but he hadn't been seen since after school when he was riding his bike. So close to where the boys lived is a stretch of woods, and it was sort of like man-made because they had to sort of create a channel for rainwater to collect in because it was flooding. Like, the levees stopped the rainwater from channeling into the Mississippi River. They had so this is sort of like a man-made forest situation. The adults called it Robin Hood Hills, but the children called it Robin Hood. And it was very, very hard to keep them out of there, as you can imagine.
Obviously. They
would build rope swings, forts, bike trails, just hang out in there. The parents didn't care for it that much. The channel was very dangerous.
Yeah.
Bridge to Terabithia.
Duh.
We've seen it firsthand. And it was also pretty close to the highway. So there was worry of, people wandering in there,
Yeah. Or just wandering out into the
highway. Yeah. So no one was really a fan of the Robin Hood Hills. So
sounds like a kid's fucking dream, though.
Doesn't it?
I want to go.
Yeah.
Sounds fun to me.
So that is obviously the first place an unofficial search for the boys happened. Also, it's dark at this time. So some parents attempt to search the woods and a couple police officers try and poke around there, but it's dark. The mosquitoes were terrible. So they all sort of return home, and an official police search for the boys would take place the next day. So on May 6, 1993, Chief Officer Gary Glitchell announced that he would be leading the search for the boys. Hours passed. At a certain point, over 50 officers were searching. Memphis, Tennessee, across the river, dispatched a helicopter to help the search. They could find nothing.
Oh, so it's like Memphis, and then West Memphis is in a different state?
Yeah.
That is so weird. Why not just make a new name?
I don't know. I think that about all of the roads that we drive. Like, why is Eastmoreland across 3 different main roads? Just pick a new name.
Yeah.
It's not the same street.
It's probably, it used to be, I imagine.
You think? But it's so, maybe.
Way back in the...
Just pick a new name.
Olden times.
Just pick a new name.
Name it Madison Street.
Exactly. So they looked everywhere. People have looked everywhere. The book said they essentially lined up side by side and walked from one edge of the woods to the other and no sign of anything. Crazy. So by noon, the group sort of abandons the idea of the woods and leaves to go search somewhere else. I mean, you can only look in there so much. One person stayed behind to keep searching the woods, Steve Jones, a Crittendale County juvenile officer. So he was searching the spot near the truck wash. So he was looking at one of the creeks that led into the main drainage canal, and he saw something in the water. So he paged the officer and Sergeant Mike Allen from the West Memphis Police Department, where Jones led him to a black shoe floating in the water. So now it's 1:30, and everyone has reconverged in the woods where the shoe was found. So around 1:45, Sergeant Allen enters the water. It's not water. It's just mud. It's just murky mud. He steps in and his shoes are sticking to the bottom and there are like bubbles coming up. And next thing they knew, a naked child's contorted body floated to the surface. This sends the town into a frenzy. Word moves real fast, and by 2:15 they had to block it off as a crime scene.
Correct.
And Chief Officer Glitchel's detectives could enter the area. Like, people were just flooding over there.
Yeah.
They were able to figure out that the first body was 8-year-old Michael Moore. He had been nude, and his left wrist was tied to his left ankle, and his right ankle tied to his right wrist. So essentially hog-tied, but in a much
Different
weirder way
way.
that caused his body to appear like very arched and contorted.
Oh my God.
He had clearly encountered some type of violence before he was dumped there, and he had a large wound to his head. The nakedness of his body also had them questioning if he had been sexually assaulted or raped in any way. Detective Bryn Ridge volunteered to continue searching the creek. He got in the water and found a stick with a t-shirt tied to it, but didn't encounter the other 2 boys yet. Quickly after that, though, they began finding all of the pieces of their clothing. They found almost all of the clothes they had been wearing when they were last seen, like right in a row. Like it was just all in a line, their clothes were, except 2 pairs of underwear and 1 sock. And I think all of the clothes had been like wound around sticks and stuck into the bottom of the creek, which was weird, like trying to hide them.
Yeah.
Also notably weird, 2 of the pairs of pants were inside out, but zipped and buttoned, which is weird.
The fuck?
Next, he found Stevie Branch's body in a similar way. His body rose up from the muddy water. His ankles and wrists were tied together with shoelaces. He looked severely beaten, and it looked like someone had bitten his face.
What the fuck?
Yeah. A few minutes after that, Ridge uncovered Christopher Byers' body face down in the mud also, with his arms and legs tied together with shoelaces. However, when they flipped his body around, his scrotum had been removed and his penis had been skinned, and around the area of the castration were several very deep stab wounds.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Why do you always ruin our day?
I do. So early on a Friday and it's already ruined.
My tummy hurts. Oh.
It's terrible. Around 30 yards away, they found 2 bicycles submerged in the water. The coroner arrived shortly after and formally pronounced all 3 of the boys deceased at 4 p.m. So now this is a murder investigation. They are no longer missing people. They ordered the stream or creek, whatever it was, to be sandbagged, I'm assuming to stop the water from flowing in or out. They were hoping to recover any type of evidence they could, seeing as it seems like whoever did this used the muddy water to dispose of a lot of evidence. Mm-hmm. And by this time, a large crowd has gathered at the end of the tape, a bit away from the bodies, I think. So Glitchell was still in charge, so he walked over. He found the Hobbs family and Christopher Byers' dad, and had to break the news that the bodies found did belong to the boys, and they were very obviously murdered. This wasn't like an accident.
Yeah.
The Hobbs family immediately collapsed and started sobbing. John Mark Byers had told a reporter that he was out until 4:30 and searched just 10 to 15 feet from where they were found and didn't see anything. Eventually, $25,000 were raised in the community to pay for the 3 boys' funerals. So, I'm going to talk about the 3 boys for a minute because this is a lot like Amanda Knox, where like Meredith Kuchar just sort of disappears, unfortunately. So Steve Edward Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore were all 2nd graders at Weaver Elementary School. Each had achieved the rank of Wolf in the local Cub Scout pack and were best friends. Steve Branch was the son of Stephen and Pamela Branch, who divorced when he was an infant. His mother was awarded custody and later married Terry Hobbs. Branch was 8 years old, 4 feet 2 inches tall, weighed 65 pounds, and had blonde hair. Steve was already a heartbreaker with snow white hair and blue eyes, according to one of his cousins. She said it was blonde, but it turned white in the summertime. She said it had just begun to lighten when the boys disappeared on Wednesday. The boys' paths couldn't help but cross frequently. Michael and Christopher lived across an intersection from each other on East Barton, and Stephen Edward Branch, Stevie, considered himself the boyfriend of Michael's 9-year-old sister, Dawn. He recently bought her a birthstone ring for $5 at Walmart.
Oh, my God, how precious.
I know.
Oh.
Terry's stepfather, not Terry, Stevie's stepfather, Terry's joked that he liked older women because she was 9.
Oh, my God, this is so sad.
It is actually very sad. Steve's mother, Pamela Hobbs, who was only 29, said her son had taught himself to do backflips and forward flips. He liked to practice Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle style karate moves, and he liked to sing. She said he was going to be my little Elvis someday. I told him how Elvis bought his mama a Graceland, so he'd have to buy me a Promised Land, and Stevie promised that he would. He loved animals. He was all the time keeping something that he had caught, like fish. He would just like bring it home to keep it. 4-year-old Amanda called her big brother Bubba. That's all she knows, that he's gone to heaven. Steve Edward Branch is buried in Mount Zion Cemetery in Steele, Missouri. Christopher Byers was born to Melissa Defer and Ricky Murray. When it's spelled with an A-Y, I always want to say Murray.
No,
It's just Murray. His parents divorced when he was 4 years old, and shortly afterward, his mother married John Mark Byers, who adopted Christopher. Byers was 8 years old, 4 feet tall, weighed 52 pounds, and had light brown hair. Andy Taylor, a longtime friend of the Byers family, who had been designated as their official spokesman, said Christopher Byers' nickname was Wormer because he was such a squirmer. He was very inquisitive, and I think along with that comes creativity. He said Christopher was interested in motors and moving mechanical parts. He was asked 1,000 questions. Just one of those kids. Christopher liked to swim. During the summer, we couldn't keep him out of the pool, they said. We think he was part fish. It was particularly tough for Ryan Byers, who was 13, who shared a room with his brother, Chris. He said, right now, the only thing that's in our mind is Christopher the Worm. And then their official spokesperson said, please pray that our children are being taken care of and nothing like this could ever possibly happen to anybody again. Christopher Mark Byers is buried in Forest Hill Cemetery East in Memphis, Tennessee. Michael Moore's parents told reporters they did not want to discuss Michael with them. Michael was the son of Todd and Dana Moore. He was 8 years old, 4 feet 2 inches, and weighed 55 pounds. He had brown hair. He was considered the leader of the three. He lived with his parents and his 9-year-old sister, Dawn. James Michael Moore is buried in Crittenden Memorial Park Cemetery in Marion, Arkansas. Not a lot of information about him, which is understandable. You don't be telling everyone about your like recently murdered son.
Right.
So this obviously caused chaos in town. This is madness. Rumors were flying around that all the boys had been sexually mutilated, which isn't true, only Christopher was. The teachers at their school had to find a way to tell all their friends and deal with the emotions of that. And there was seemingly no lead immediately. But the West Memphis police and Glitchell were hell-bent on solving it. Then they come out and say, like, the murders might have been part of a gang or cult-related activity, which was a rumor that was floating around that they had apparently thought had some truth behind it. Some ladies reported hearing satanic chanting in the woods, things like that.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that had been like a rumor that was going around, and I think when they couldn't figure anything else out, they were like, well, maybe there's something to...
What year was this?
93.
A little after Satanic Panic.
Yeah. But still.
Still.
The devil?
Yeah. That'll scare you any year you're in. Especially if you're me.
Especially if you're you. Glitchell also declined help from the Arkansas State Police. His reluctance, he claimed, was because he wanted as little information about this case getting out to make it easier to interview suspects, because if they slipped up and mentioned something not on the news, they would be able to tell if they were part of the crime. Like, we actually would like to keep as many people out of this as possible.
Yeah.
Possibly another reason was that West Memphis and Crittenden police forces were being investigated by the Arkansas State Police.
Oh, God.
So things were pretty strained between all of them. They were not getting along.
Great. Oh, boy. I can already see this not going smooth.
Yeah, it had something to do with an undercover narcotics police officer being killed. And when they looked into this officer, he had been stealing evidence to pay for his own drugs, which in turn revealed several more officers who were like stealing guns that reported to be destroyed out of evidence, or using them or selling them. It just like uncovered this whole entire fucking thing. An interesting side note, Christopher Byers' dad was also at one time an undercover drug informant for the West Memphis police. He had a very stormy past, threatening to kill and steal his children back from his first wife.
Oh, boy.
Which landed him on 3 years of probation. And despite never sticking to the terms of his probation, that part of his record was erased completely. Very odd. So, anyway, the sandbagging of the stream turned up literally nothing. No more clothes or body parts. because they still haven't found the part of Christopher that was cut off. The bodies were taken out of the river and then left to sit in the sun under tarps until the coroner finally got there hours later. And then the coroner had to explain that finding any information about the time of death was hard because of, like, when they were tied, it's hard to tell when rigor mortis set in because they were tied together and then in 60-degree water and then hoisted out in 80-degree weather under tarps for hours. He's like, this is almost impossible to figure out when this happened.
Oh, Jesus.
There was also a shockingly lack of blood around the area, which is insane for what happened. Yeah. It also seemed like the record keeping around this time was very messy. It was reported a few times that Moore was castrated, but we know that it was Byers. It seemed to allude that the police always thought the boys were murdered somewhere else and then dumped there, even though they didn't say anything about it. So in their minds, they're thinking, well, the boys weren't killed here, but they're not telling people that. They also thought the boys were hit with something round like a hammer, and that Byers may have had a needle mark on his body from being injected with something. There was also a note that it looked like Byers may have been hit with a studded belt, which is interesting because John Mark Byers admitted to hitting Christopher with a belt before he went missing, but that was never looked into.
This is so messy.
It only gets worse.
Oh my God, already. I'm like, they're never, is this unsolved? Don't tell me, I guess, but okay. I can feel it leaning that way.
Despite trying to keep most information under wraps, a lot of it ended up leaking. Yep. So the public knew they were looking into the car washes, white vans, carpet cleaners, and any Vietnam veterans in the hospital because the way the boys were tied up resembled how American prisoners were tied up during the war.
Jesus.
So weird. And eventually had the outline of the crime talked about on America's Most Wanted. So like everything is actually out there now. One of Michael Moore's friends, Aaron, had told police how he had saw Michael the day he was kidnapped talking to a black man with yellow teeth in a maroon car, and that man said Michael's mom sent him to pick Michael up from school, which is odd because Michael lived almost on school property, so his mom surely didn't send someone to pick him up.
Right.
And they never found any evidence that that interaction took place. And Aaron comes up a lot more. It sounds like it got so convoluted that police had a hard time dissecting facts from rumors after the first week. There was just so much shit going around.
Yeah.
They investigated two people who had abruptly moved from West Memphis to California right after the murders, and that man admitted he was hospitalized for drug and alcohol issues, and he did murder the boys. And then immediately recanted that statement, and then they never looked into it further. They're like,
what the fuck?
You said you didn't do it. Again, Byers' parents were informants in the drug world, and then their son was brutalized the worst. Never looked into. You think you would start to make some connections. I have to move my leg.
Get connected for free. Education connections.
Okay. So the parents were all very informally questioned, and they essentially had no new information, but they did look into the Byers more than the other two. John Mark Byers stated he got home at 3:10 on May 5th, 1993, and then had to leave again at 3:50 to take Christopher's brother Ryan to court because he was a witness to a traffic incident. He then drove to Memphis to pick up his wife, drove back to the courthouse to pick up Ryan, and when they got back at 6:15 and realized Christopher wasn't home, they started their search at 6:20. That was basically the only initial interview recorded from the Byers. They had two more calls concerning the Byers that were called in that first week. One of them, a woman, remembered overhearing the principal and John Mark Byers talking about how Christopher was getting pulled out of classes for causing a disturbance again, and Christopher told the principal they did all they could do and they were going to actually send Christopher away. After the principal left, this woman recalled Christopher's parents talking about how they needed to get rid of him. The principal claimed he did not recall this conversation, and it was also never followed up on formally. It was also revealed and never questioned that John Mark went to the woods without a flashlight. He was able to pick up Chris's mom in Memphis, make it back to court during rush hour in a tight amount of time, and the amount of time he was in the woods alone before the boys were discovered. So Christopher's dad claimed he searched the woods. He had no flashlight with him. The timeline is so tight, and he was in the woods alone for like a large portion of this time, the night before they started officially searching. Christopher's brother was interviewed also, and his story mostly matched up. He got home at 3:38, went to his appointment at 4 with John Mark. John Mark returned to get him at 6. On the way home, they talked about how Christopher was going to be grounded because he broke a seal on the window. When they got home, they were going to go out to dinner, so Ryan went upstairs to get Christopher and realized he wasn't home. The neighbor said he saw Christopher on a skateboard with Michael and Stevie, who were on bikes. And then they started looking for the boys. Another interesting part of Ryan's story was that when he and his friends were searching the woods, they heard some sticks crackling and then 5 large splashes. He said after the second splash, he yelled out to see who was there. And after a third splash and no answer, they got scared and ran out of the woods. And as they were running out, they heard a gunshot. And then continued to look until midnight when they made his dad go to bed. He told the police all that, and his friends were interviewed separately and said the same thing. John Mark had a different timeline of events at the end of the night, and that was also never questioned. So those two stories don't ever end up adding up either. So they are coming up empty-handed here on leads. When really they like...
Not really. There's like quite a few, actually.
There's several leads, and they're just choosing to ignore them. So this leads them to really lean into the cult or gang? Gult activity. So they're like, it must be this, because we can't find anything else. This leads them to Damien Eccles. One person essential in leading them there was Jerry Driver, who was not a police officer, but a juvenile probation officer, who eventually would be the chief juvenile officer who had dealt with Damien Eccles in the past. He had been watching him for about a year after dealing with him in an incident with his younger ex-girlfriend. They were, forced to break up. He threatened to kill her new boyfriend, burn their house down, according to Driver.
Casual things.
Yeah. And then they tried to run away together.
Typical teenage love.
Yes, we've seen this 100 times. So Driver had been watching him and noticed he was veering towards the occult and witchcraft, Satanism, things like that.
Comes back to the devil.
Always. There's honestly a lot about Damien in this book. There's a lot about Damien
His
in
name's
general.
Damien.
But it's not his real name.
Oh.
He picked it, which is even worse.
That's... Okay.
I tried to sift through, but it's hard to tell what's true or not with a lot of this stuff because it's just so young. He's so young, and the occult has such like a bad reputation anyway that it's always construed into like the darkest timeline of events that could possibly happen. So whatever. He's dating this young girl, and he had said they wanted to have a baby to sacrifice it to Satan.
What the fuck?
And then denies he's actually into Satanism. He's a tricky fellow. I feel like he's one of those kids who would just say things.
Oh, just one of those liars?
Yeah. Just to get a
make
rise.
him seem dangerous.
Yeah. So eventually Damon gets sent away to live in a different town in Oregon with his parents, I think, because he doesn't live with his parents here. And then returns back to Arkansas despite Driver very much not wanting him to move back. Driver was like, okay, please get the hell out of here. I'm sick of dealing with you. And then Damien ends up moving back. But his parents really did not want him, and they had no money to care for him. And at this point, he was 2 months away from turning 18, and he wanted to go back to Arkansas anyway. So they were like, just go back now.
Whatever.
None of us
be
want
done.
this.
Should be done with this.
Yeah. So when he gets back to Arkansas, he is immediately hauled back to the juvenile detention center because Driver said the things that he did in Oregon violated his probation. Allegedly went in the waiting room with another kid that was there who had hurt his arm. Damien asked to take his arm and started sucking the blood out of this injury. When asked why, he said he wasn't sure, but he hadn't taken his meds lately. So then he had to go back to the mental hospital he was in before in Little Rock, Arkansas. He was there for 2 weeks and then released because he appeared to be acting normal. He had to go back to the therapist, and he did keep all of his appointments, eventually trusting his therapist. He would confide that he could be the next Ted Bundy or Charles Manson, but yet he still denies that he is into Satanism and cults.
Well.
Yeah.
Charles Manson was a cult leader, so.
He does himself no favors this entire time. He would also say that he got his power from drinking blood and the blood of his partners, and it makes him feel like a god.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So having no leads on the 3 murders of the boys, the whole cult theory began to really take hold.
Absolutely.
Which is not great for Damien, because where the fuck do you think they're going first?
Correct.
They're coming right for you. So when Driver heard about this, he immediately told Marion police about Damien. He also zeroed in on Damien's group of friends and his best friend, Jason Baldwin. They had been friends since the 7th grade, and Jason had said, like, he was very sick of people thinking he was a Satanist because he had long hair and wore Metallica shirts. He's like, that is not what Satanism is.
Clearly, you worship the devil if you listen to rock and roll.
His parents were divorced, and he had virtually no contact with his father. He also once found his mom after she attempted suicide and saved her life. He did say he believed in God and right and wrong, but by the time he was in high school, he sort of thought religion was a deathbed comfort and rarely thought about religion, unlike Damien, who was obsessed with all things religion. Jason was also accused of starting or being in a cult with Damien before the murders even happened. So they have always been accused of being in a cult or into Satan or something. So an anonymous tip came in from a local pastor. So I'm not sure how it's anonymous if you know exactly who it is. But he said he was worried about a group of kids who worship Satan in the local trailer park. Obviously, that was Damien Eccles and his current girlfriend, Domini, D-O-M-I-N-I. So, with all these concerns about Damien, they decided to just go talk to him. At noon on May 7th, almost 24 hours after the first body was pulled out of the water, Lieutenant Studbury and Juvenile Officer Jones went to Damien Eccles' home and questioned him on the front porch. No notes were ever made of this conversation. The next day, an interview subject claimed to have seen 2 black men and 1 white man walking out of the woods. So the department was like, well, actually, that makes sense, because during satanic rituals, it's normal for them to blacken their faces. So it was probably that. Those were the black men.
Yeah, yes.
The third day of the investigation, narcotics officers Shane Griffin and Detective Bill Burham went to Jason Baldwin's home to question him. Damien and his girlfriend happened to be there. They were asked where they were the night of the murders. They said they had gone to Jason's uncle's house, and then Jason cut the grass. Damien then called his father to pick them up at the laundromat. They said they were picked up at 6 p.m., and they took Jason and Domini home, and then Damien went home. Sudbury then took out a list of questions to ask them right there in the front yard. They were never told they were suspects. They were not read their Miranda rights. Their parents were not home. They did not have permission to do this. Damien had told them he was diagnosed with manic depressive schizophrenia and gave the names of his doctors to follow up on, and that he was taking medication for it. He's like, this is what's going on. It's under control. You could speak to my doctors. Griffin wrote down that Damien was involved with witchcraft and that his girlfriend was 4 months pregnant. I don't know if that was true at the time. I don't think it was. When asked about the crime, Damien said he had no idea who the boys were, and he didn't understand how someone could commit a crime so sick. When asked how he thought the boys died, Damien answered what he had been hearing, that they were drowned and cut up. The rumor going on that he had heard. He then asked if Damien believed in God and the devil. He asked how did being questioned make him feel, and Damien said scared. He was asked if he would take a polygraph, and he said there would be no reason he would fail, so why wouldn't he?
Right.
And when asked why his fingerprints would be at or around the crime scene, he said they wouldn't be. They asked Jason the same questions, who was much more reserved and short with his answers. And then his mother came out, flying out of the car.
Yeah.
Like, you need to leave. Leave my son alone.
Yeah, aren't they? Yeah, minors.
Yeah, so they cannot do that.
Right.
However, they had enough to want to talk to Damien again. So on Monday, May 10th, they asked Damien to come to the police station to talk, which he did with no lawyer or parent present again.
Oh, goodness sakes.
Sudbury and Detective Bryn Ridge conducted the interview. It basically went the same. Damien stated whoever did the crime was sick and probably did it for a thrill. They probably did it in the woods so that they could hear the boys scream and not get caught. They probably still live in town and are getting off on not being caught yet. And there's probably some crystals or other occult items around the crime scene. And that the penis is a symbol of power because Christopher's had been cut off. Mm-hmm. On the personal side, he had evil printed across his knuckles, just like Jason Baldwin did. He said he thought sex was boring. He considers himself very intelligent. He wants to be a writer. And, like, Damien doesn't know that he's a suspect. He has no idea.
And he's just saying all this stuff, and they're like, oh, my God, this is him. Because what else are they going to go after
100%. I wish he had a lawyer, because he does not.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why are you shouldn't be telling them all this.
He does not
You're painting yourself as, like, a prime suspect.
Yeah, he does not understand, what they're doing to him. So Damien went over his activities the day of the murder again, which pretty much matched up with what he had said at Jason's. But after he went home, he and his parents and sister went to a friend's house and that he talked on the phone with a friend from Tennessee until around 11:30 p.m. The next day, he stayed the night at his girlfriend's house. He said he had heard the boys were missing from Jason Baldwin and then said that he had also heard from his mother. So, like, you're hearing from everywhere.
Yeah.
He had been on the phone that entire night. Also, interestingly, Damien stated that Steve Jones from Juvenile Authority had come to see him a few days before and had told him that the boys were murdered and that their penises were cut off and that someone peed in their mouth.
What the fuck?
Which is interesting because they're trying to keep as many details a secret as possible.
Yeah. How's that going?
So they could catch the killer admitting something not known to the public.
Yeah, and this is fucked from the get.
Yeah, they have an officer revealing very secret information to the main suspect. Like, things he's definitely going to repeat that he had heard.
Yes. Standout information, really.
Yes. Damien was then asked if he would submit blood samples and take a polygraph. He agreed to...
God, lawyer the fuck up.
He agreed to both, which don't ever
Are
do
they
that.
not offering him a lawyer? Or are they saying it I bet you they're saying it in a way he still doesn't comprehend.
No, I don't think he knows at all that they, like, want to arrest him.
Don't ever give a sample of
Never.
anything.
Never. Even if you're innocent, never voluntarily give the police anything. If given the opportunity, they will certainly use it against you.
Yes.
They are not your friend.
Especially when they're grasping at straws here.
They are trained to, like, oh, you could just go home if you do. Then you never get to go home.
Yeah.
And what would you know? The polygraph interview wasn't recorded. So there was no record of the polygraph's response. All that was written about it was, on May 10th, 1993, I interviewed Damien Wayne Eccles, white male, 18, of South Grove, West Memphis, Arkansas. He denied any involvement in the crime. After approximately 45 minutes, I asked the subject what he was afraid of, and he replied the electric chair. He then said that he liked the hospital in Little Rock. He said he had been treated there for manic depression. After a short period of time, he ceased to deny his involvement. Admission through absence of denial.
What? How can you even... Dude, that doesn't make sense for a polygraph test.
No, it doesn't.
Like, what questions are you asking? This is stupid.
We don't know.
I'm getting pissed.
Yeah. He then said, I will tell you all about it if you will let me talk to my mother. Detective Ridge brought in his mother to my office to talk to him. After talking to his mother, he again denied being involved in the murders. After approximately 20 minutes, I asked, you're never going to tell anyone about this but your doctor, are you? And he replied, no. Ridge wrote in his notes after the polygraph, Detective Durham came and met with me and others and reported that Damien had been untruthful and, according to the polygraph, was involved in the murders. But we never...
There's no record of the actual polygraph.
No. No, there's not. What the fuck? Another tip came in that led them to someone named LG, who happened to be Domini's cousin, and that he may have committed the murders or knew someone who did, and his aunt was planning to cover for him. He took a polygraph test. What do you know? It came back, said he was lying when he said he didn't know who committed the murders. This is when he said he thought Damien Eccles committed the murders. They then talked to his aunt, and she said she saw Damien and her niece walking down the street that night, and their pants were muddy. No evidence of this.
Yeah.
They had an exactly similar situation with Damien's ex-girlfriend, Deanna. They told her the polygraph said that she was lying when she said she didn't know who committed the murders, and then she changed her answer and said that she thought Damien did it. They then talked to Damien's mother, finally, and she gave her account of the night the boys went missing. It was identical to what Damien had already told them. They went to their friend's house. They weren't home. They filled a prescription, went to their home, and Damien was on the phone all night with friends from Tennessee. They followed up with all those parts, the friends, the pharmacy, the girls he talked to on the phone. It all matched up perfectly.
Yeah, so maybe we should, like, look down another path, maybe.
Yeah. So they
going after the town freak.
A witch hunt, if I have ever seen one.
It's like Eddie Munson.
100%. It is like Eddie Munson. I forgot about that. God. I want him to...
Not be dead?
Yeah.
Yeah. Scalp bitches.
So, I don't know if I had said they interviewed this woman named Vicki Hutchinson, who was... Do you have my stomach?
Yeah.
I'm starving.
Mine's hungry, too.
I was very overwhelmed yesterday. I hardly ate dinner. So they interview this woman named Vicki Hutchinson, who is Jason Baldwin's neighbor, I think. So they interview her again for some reason. They asked if she knew of any cult activity going on. She said no. And then called back a few days later and said some kids in her neighborhood knew something about a cult or Satan worshipers, whatever they were calling it. So she's going to like go undercover and see what she can find out. She's like, I'll go
infiltrate the group.
100%. And Detective Bray was like, sure. Yeah. Do that. Go
Just
under
a public citizen?
Yes.
What
Yeah. You think he'd be like, well, no.
Let's not.
Don't. So then she zeroes in on Jesse, Miss Kelly. He would sometimes babysit her children and just happened to be on the short list for suspects that Driver had given Bray. And she knew that Jesse would sometimes hang out with Damien. So she's thinking this is her way of talking to Damien. She's going to get to him through Jesse, Miss Kelly. She asked if Jesse knew anything about the murders. He mentioned something about Damien and his friends who drank blood, because that's like a rumor he was spreading around about himself. Some things to know about Jesse. He was short, maybe 5'1". So his siblings gave him a very hard time. His father was a big drinker, just like not a great situation. Also, he was very mentally delayed. He scored a 67 on an intelligence test, which is equivalent to an IQ of 72.
I don't understand IQ. Even I want to take an IQ test. I want to know what my IQ is.
Let's see what like an average IQ is. I don't know off the top of my head. Oops. Average IQ. Why am I not connected to the internet?
That's weird because I am.
There's some motherfucking ants over here. Not on my watch. Get the fuck out of here.
Between 85 and 115 is the average. About 98% of people have a score below 130. Only 2% of the population score above that.
Yeah. So he's at...
What'd you say, 60 something?
72.
So, okay.
So he was also in special education classes. He was 11 and in the 3rd grade. They finally stopped holding him back because, like, I feel like at a certain point you just have to. You can't let him keep repeating grades with kids who are much younger than him. So he was in the 9th grade with a 4th grade reading level. He was also known for lashing out, probably as a result.
Yeah, he does not fucking understand
anything.
Oh, gosh.
So he would fight a lot, pull his hair out, just misguided anger and energy everywhere. He ended up dropping out of school, which...
Obviously.
Yeah, is not a mystery.
Oh, that's sad.
Okay, so back to this makeshift undercover sting Vicky is trying to do.
Yeah, and anything this woman comes up with, you can't do anything with. Like, well, you would think not?
You would think.
Oh, God.
So Detective Bray told her to check out some books from the library about the occult and scatter them around her house so that Damien would feel comfortable talking to her about it. They are, like, in cahoots with a private
But, like, the
citizen.
dumbest fucking way. Just make it look like you're into that.
She has all these occult books on her
Put
coffee.
an upside-down cross on your door.
God.
What the fuck? It's like, oh, yeah, you read that? I loved that one. What the fuck? This is so stupid.
She asked Jesse if he knew Damien Eccles, and Jesse said, not really. He said, I just know that he's kind of weird. I don't know him. Because, I mean, he was kind of weird. That was like his reputation. Yeah. So he was like, I don't know. I know he's weird. I don't really know him. And she was like, well, I want to see him. And acted like she wanted to, like, date him. Like, hey, can you, like, hook us up? And she's 32 years old. 32 years old. Like, from the get-go, this is the worst plan of all time.
Yeah.
But Jesse doesn't care or, like, know any different.
And also, like, predatory.
Yeah.
Like, you're
being a pervert.
Yeah.
You're instigating.
And so far inserting yourself in something that you don't need to be a part of.
No. So, Jesse's like, whatever. So next time he sees Damien and Jason in the trailer park, he takes them to Vicky's house and then he leaves. He said he went home and then watched Damien's mom pick them up about 15 minutes later. And to him, that was the extent of Damien and Vicky's conversations. Like, whatever, he wasn't into it, he left. However, what Vicky told police was much different.
Naturally.
According to her, she went fully undercover. They had an 8-day-long relationship. He loved her, but like just transactional on her part of business. He just fell in love with her.
She couldn't help it.
She said he invited her to an SBAT, which was a gathering of witches. Detective Bray told her it was too dangerous to attend, but she said she didn't care if it helped them catch the killers. And again, he was like, okay, you can go.
She's a fucking Vigilante.
Literally vigilante justice. So according to her, Damien picked her up in a red Ford Escort and they drove to a field north of Marion. She said they got out on a dirt road and she could hear like running water. They then met up with 10 other kids with their arms and faces painted black. What a coincidence. Who were touching each other. And she said she was very offended and asked Damien to take her home, and he did. She said she couldn't identify anyone and didn't know any names because they only used nicknames. She didn't know where she was. The police didn't question the fact that Damien didn't drive, and his family didn't own a red Ford Escort, or how she was able to see because there was no moon out that night. Nor did she say anything about lighting. It's pitch black. Damien...
They're supposedly all painted in black.
Yeah. And Damien does not drive. Like, he doesn't have a license. He doesn't have a car. Like, it's just not something that he ever does. He walks everywhere.
Yeah.
So, on May 27th, Vicki Hutchinson and her son Aaron, who I mentioned earlier, get another interview with 3 detectives. Vicki tells them exactly what she told Bray. Aaron, who was friends with the boys, now had much more information. He said he used to go in the woods all the time with the boys and that they had a treehouse that they would hang out in. And sometimes they would spy on 5 people sitting in a circle, chanting and, quote, doing what men and ladies do. So obviously there's a lot of questions going on here. But they have like sirens going off like, oh, it's cult. We have figured this out. Aaron saw the cult. Vicki was involved. It's like all adding up for them.
Yeah.
Then Vicki brings another piece of rock solid information. She brings forward an earring that she said Damien dropped at her house. And what do you know? Aaron said that he saw that exact earring on one of the guys who would be chanting in the woods. And it is a very specific earring. It was like a skull and a snake earring, like very identifiable. The next day, they asked Vicki to set up a tape recorder at her house and try and catch Damien talking about the murders and his activities in the woods. And what do you know? The recording was just muffled. They couldn't hear what he was saying, nothing. And then it just sort of disappeared.
Yeah. Sounds like how that would go.
Yeah. So after a month of nothing, they decide to polygraph Vicki, and they allege the test said that she was being truthful. So everything she's saying about Damien must be true. And this is her big breakthrough. Like, this is hard evidence now.
This woman saying this man did it.
Yeah. And the polygraph said that it is true. This is going kind of fast. I mean, not really, but...
Not at all.
Not timeline wise, but it do feel like it'd be flying. My throat hurts. Rona. Okay. So on June 3rd, 1993, the police go to Vicki's trailer where Jesse had spent the night because she asked him to because her boyfriend was out of town. They bang on the door, tell Jesse that he has to come with them. Jesse said he had no problem doing so when he wasn't even scared or startled. So he got in the car with Detective Allen. They got to the police station. Allen did some standard paperwork, took Jesse's height, weight, all of that. They then realized Jesse is a minor and they can't talk to him until his parents sign something. So he was like, we want to talk to you about the murders, but we need your dad to sign off on it. So Jesse was like, he honestly probably won't care. So they drove around to find him. So while they're in the car, Detective Allen tells Jesse, like, hey, you know there's a reward if you have information about the murders. So make sure you tell us whatever you know and you can get reward money.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So
this is so fucked up.
It's very, very fucked up from start to finish.
Don't be trusting the police, man.
Never. So they get to the McDonald's that Jesse's dad is at, and he just signs the form to allow them to polygraph Jesse without looking at it.
What? Like, this is about murder.
Murder. Then he told Jesse to just tell the police if he knew anything.
What murder?
Because he could get a new truck with reward money. He's like, well, just tell him. Because I could use a new car.
Oh, my God.
This kid has, like, the wherewithal of a 4th grader. Just to remind everyone.
Like fucking Brendan Dassey.
It's all I could think of. So Jesse was read his rights twice that morning, once at 11 and once at 11:30. Basically telling him the usual. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to a lawyer. Jesse signed those papers. Remember, like I said, he has an IQ of like 70.
Correct.
He couldn't even sign his name because he never learned cursive, so he just wrote it.
Stop. Oh, this is...
Yeah. So I'm not even sure. I'm actually very sure he doesn't even have the mental capacity to understand what having your Miranda rights read is and what it offers
not at all.
you. He has no idea he's a suspect. They literally just Mirandized him. According to Jesse, Detective Durham did the polygraph test, and he asked Jesse if he had murdered the boys, and he said no. If he was lying, he said no. If he did drugs, he said no. Durham told Jesse that he was lying, and Jesse was like, okay, I did. I have done drugs before. And Durham said, yeah, I know that because you also sell drugs. And Jesse said that's when he started to get mad because he had definitely never sold drugs before. And then Durham told him, well, your brain is telling me you're lying. Durham said that he asked Jesse all the questions you would think. Did you murder the boys? Do you hang out in Robin Hood? Were you involved? Do you suspect anyone? Jesse told him no. Durham told him that he was lying. And then Durham came out of the interrogation room and told everyone that he was lying his ass off. He was like, Jesse's in there just lying up a fucking storm. And Jesse said he was just so confused. Oops, we lost another.
It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine.
He said he was so confused because Durham told him that his machine could read minds and could see if what he was saying was different than what was in his brain. And Jesse just could not understand why his brain was telling Durham he's lying when he's not really lying. This is how little he understands a polygraph test. So
it's not your brain, it's your fucking heart rate, first of all.
No, but the detectives are literally like, your brain is telling us.
Read your mind.
So Jesse said Durham started to get super pissed, and then he spit on him. Jesse said he couldn't be sure if it was on purpose or not because Durham was just screaming at him. And Jesse sort of like hauled back to hit him. And Detective Allen came in at that time and took Jesse out of there. It's like 12:30 now.
The fact that his dad knows his son is clearly delayed and still was like, oh my God, this poor kid never stood a fucking chance in the world.
No. So Glitchell took him in another room, and Jesse said he just kept asking him the same questions Durham already did over and over and over. And why does he know so much about the murders if he wasn't there? And he was like, I don't. I'm telling you what I heard because it's what everyone heard.
Yeah,
it's
like,
everywhere. I don't know anything. And just kept asking to go home. And he said that he wanted to go home, and they kept saying in a little bit, in a little bit. Oh my God. We've seen it 100 times.
Oh my God. And like, he can get up and walk out.
Yes, he certainly doesn't know that. So,
oh my gosh.
And then he said Glitchell started asking him things and wouldn't stop until he said the thing he wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. See, leading questions. So Glitchell would say, were the boys tied up? And Jesse would just repeat it back. The boys were tied up. What were they tied up with? And he said a rope. And he said Glitchell screamed at him, like, stop messing with me, Jesse. What were they tied up with? They were tied up with shoestrings, right? So he said he just started repeating everything back to him, but was confused because if he killed them, shouldn't he know these things? He's like, why are they trying so hard to convince me of the answers if I should know them if I did it? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Another interesting point is that none of these interviews were recorded.
Oh my fucking God, dude.
Including the next interview that I'm going to be talking about.
Oh my God.
So Jesse said in the next interview with Glitchell, and I believe Ridge, both there, Glitchell literally drew a picture for Jesse with a circle of X's, and inside the circle were 3 dots. According to Jesse, Glitchell told him that those 3 dots are you, Damien, and Jason, and the X's are us, so you can either be in the circle or you can be out. Pick one.
What the fuck?
So after his interview with Durham, Jesse starts saying more and more things about the crime and Damien. So now Jesse is saying the night before the murders, Damien and Jason called him and said they were going to go out and get some boys and hurt them. Jesse then says a whole slew of things about him. He says things like he saw pictures of the murdered boys at a satanic ritual. They have meetings on Wednesdays. They have meetings in Robin Hood. They would build fires. They would kill and eat parts of dogs. Animal killings were a part of the ritual.
Oh my God.
The day the boys were killed, there was no meeting. A friend of Jason's would bring a briefcase of drugs to the meetings, and in the briefcase was the picture of the boys standing in front of a house. Damien has watched Boys in the Woods. Jason had a knife. Jason and Damien were in a sexual relationship. And Damien and Jason had called Jesse 3 times about the murders the day before, the day of, and soon after the murders, where he could hear Damien say, we did it. So this is a large change from just 4 hours ago, where Jesse knew 0 things.
I feel like trying to decide if I know how this ends or not. Because I feel like maybe I have looked up a little bit, but now I can't remember.
Probably. So now he knows everything that happened, apparently. Which, of course, does not strike them as odd because they are, like, salivating
They're like, yes, we knew it.
Over this confession. But they can't arrest Damien yet because there still isn't proof. So Ridge leaves the room. Jesse is clearly a mess at this point. He doesn't know what's going on. So after Ridge leaves, Glitchell informs Ridge that Jesse has now fully confessed to being present at the murders and watching Jason and Damien do it. Jesse later said there are 3 reasons he did all of that. 1, the circle drawing. 2, the photographs they showed him of the boy's dead body. And 3, there was apparently a tape recording played for him of a child saying, "Nobody knows what happened but me." That freaked him out. It would later come out that that recording was of Aaron Hutchinson from his police interview a few days earlier. So they're like freaking him out on purpose.
Yeah.
So now that Jesse has confessed that he was actually there, they're like, let's start taping these interviews. Now that Jesse has already confessed they got what they wanted, like, let's get this on tape, actually. The interrogation took place at 2:44 p.m. and was full of leading questions. Things like, so you got a phone call, right? Just shit like that. He said he went to West Memphis with Jason Baldwin and Damien, that Damien hit a kid really hard and started screwing him. When asked to point out the boy, the police laid out photos of the boys, and Jesse pointed to Michael Moore and said that one. And then the detective was straight up like, "This one, you mean?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, that one," because Christopher was the only one who had been messed up like that. And the detective was like, "So you saw Damien hit him in the head. What did he hit him with?" Except Jesse never said
that he saw him hit him in the head.
Correct. So this goes on, and he even sort of incriminated himself by saying he helped hit the boys. However, 2 things are wrong here. Jesse describes this as going on in the morning, and they know the boys were at school. This did not happen in the morning. They know very few things. That's one of them. 2, Jesse doesn't actually describe himself witnessing the murder, no matter how hard they try to get him to say it. His story changes in a way where, now he ran out of the woods. He said after Damien started to cut the groin of the kid, he ran out. The detectives asked what time this happened, and Jesse said noon. The detective was trying to lead him, okay, so did it happen when school got out? And Jesse said, I didn't go to school. And the detective started to ask about the boys, and Jesse's like, the boys didn't go to school either, which is just a lie. We know the boys were at school. It's one of the only things we do know. So the detective was finally like, okay, well, were you wearing a watch? And Jesse said no. So the detective said, so your time period may not be exactly right, is what you're saying. And he said, right. So now they also don't have that problem. Jesse still isn't repeating the story he had told earlier when he said he was there. So the detectives at this point are like, listen, Jesse, this is being recorded. You need to tell the truth. If you were there the whole time, you need to just tell us, blah, 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 blah. And Jesse is again like, I stayed until they tied up the boys and then I left. He describes more things that cannot be true. He said they were tied up, but just their hands, not their feet, which we also know is a lie. And we know it wasn't in such a weird way that it was odd Jesse wouldn't mention how weird it was. Mm-hmm. He said one of the boys was kicking his feet, which is impossible.
Yeah.
He also did not mention them being naked, which we know is true. So then the detectives asked point blank, did you hit the boys? Did you rape the boys? Did you kill the boys? And Jesse answered no to all of them. When he asked if he saw the boys being murdered, he said yes. And then when they asked what one, he pointed to Christopher Byers. When they asked how he was killed, Jesse said Damien choked him with his hands on a big stick because the police had asked about a stick earlier. However, Jesse failed to mention the severe injuries to Christopher's face and body because he was clearly beaten. And oddly enough, there were no injuries to his neck. So he certainly wasn't choked to death or choked at all.
Yeah.
The other problem that needed to be addressed was the timeline issue. Jesse maintains they went to the woods at 9 a.m. The boys were killed at noon, and Damien called him at 9 p.m. So the police say, all right, so they killed the boys, totally just glossing over the fact that he never said he saw multiple boys be murdered, just the one. So they ask, how long until after the murders did Damien call you? A half hour or an hour? Giving him 2 options. Jesse said an hour. When before, it wasn't until 9 hours later that he said Damien called him. He's like, oh, he called me after an hour. So now they don't care. They have a witness to the murder and a timeline on record that matches up. So he had been there for 6 hours at this point, and only those last 34 minutes had been recorded. After that interview, they take a 20-minute break. Glitchell comes back and interviews Jesse again.
Oh my God. Where is
his parents?
Yes. What is going on?
Now, when this interview starts, miraculously, Jesse said the murders took place when it was starting to get dark out. Glitchell was pleased with that, and he was like, well, that clears some things up. He then moves on to the boys being tied up.
Clears things up? It's a completely different story.
It's not at all the same. So they ask him again, They know the boys were tied up with shoestrings. Jesse maintained it was a rope. So they ask him again. Jesse maintains that they were tied up with a brown rope. So they quickly move on to something else because he's clearly not going to.
Giving them what they want on that.
Yeah. So they ask about the rape, and he said that Damien and Jason raped the boys, but incorrectly identified 2 of the boys. He said that Damien and Jason raped them orally as well. And when the police asked if anyone had, like, done anything to the boys, Jesse said no. So that interview was concluded at 5:05 p.m., and by 9 p.m., Glitchell was in front of a judge trying to get an affidavit because they believed they had probable cause to arrest and search the boys' home. At this point, Jesse had been at the station for 11 hours. He said he figured the police knew he was lying because the police had known him forever. He said the interrogation was like a game to him. He said when he said something the police didn't like, it went bad. So when he said things they wanted to hear, things went better. So he just started saying those things.
Right.
He said after they finished recording him, he just wanted to lay down. So he went in a holding cell and figured they had called his dad to come get him. So he just lay down and waited. He had no idea. He had basically confessed to being involved in a triple homicide. And that's the end of part 1.
Jesus Christ. This is fucking insane.
It just gets worse the whole time. And this is like, cases where the victims get lost are so frustrating, but like, this is one of those ones where just everything is frustrating.
Yeah, none of this is going how it should be going.
Not at all. It does remind me a lot of Amanda Knox. I mean, the situation of Meredith gets lost because what happens to Amanda is so fucked up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right. If you're on the Patreon, I'm going to try and have all 3 of these parts available for you right now. I probably should be able to. It's Labor Day. I don't have to work on Monday. If you're not on the Patreon, the next 2 weeks are going to be this. So we'll see you next week and the week after that.
At least you're assured.
At least you'll have episodes. So. All right, we got to go so I can continue talking before I stop.
Yep. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at AlmostPod. If you want an additional episode every week, you can find us at Patreon at AlmostPod.
If you have a case you want us to cover, throw it in a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find merch and all other information at bitchpackmedia.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.